Joining me now is a PFL welterweight. He takes on Magomed Magomedkerimov in the quarterfinals at PFL 7 on October 11th in his hometown, Las Vegas, Nevada. It is Chris Curtis. Chris, how's it going, man?
I'm good, man. I am feeling really good, actually. Surprisingly good to be dying on the inside, but I'll take it.
Say that again. Surprisingly good to
be dying on the inside.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel surprisingly good to be dying on the inside. Yeah.
Why is that?
This is the official weight cutting week has begun. Calories are low. It's just never a good time. When you're trying to get through practice in the day without having a ton of calories, and you're just like, kill me, let me die.
Is it annoying or more difficult to do interviews like this when you're having to start that process and you're not eating as much and probably not as happy as you usually are? Is it tougher than usual?
It's definitely a little bit more of a challenge sometimes. Like right now I feel fine. So I had one earlier today and I was just like, I don't want to do this. I'm tired. I'm freaking starving. But I just finished working out, so I've got like another half hour in me of decent energy before it hits me again. So not too bad right now.
Well, I appreciate the time during the not ideal period of the life of a mixed martial arts fighter. Let's go back to that fight, to the first one with Magomed a few months ago. Fell short in that fight. It was a pretty close decision, a very competitive fight just from the outside looking in. How would you assess your performance in that fight?
I made mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes in that fight. I didn't pull the trigger the way I should have. I gave him a little bit too much respect. I thought he was going to do I thought he was going to do a lot more than he did. So it made me kind of leery and cautious. And I had spots where I performed, I think, great. There's also spots to where, I let him get good positions because I was expecting something else to happen. And he's just like, he's a good fighter, but he's a very basic fighter. And I kind of overestimated what he was going to be able to do. And by the time I got comfortable and realized that was it was too late.
Did you know right away after the fight that the rematch would be next, just how the points lined up, that you would be fighting him right away in the quarterfinals? Did you realize that as soon as the fight was over?
I was pissed, and one of my managers, Lance Spaldi, came up to me and told me, don't worry about it, I'm pretty sure we got him in the finals. And I was like, okay, well, we'll see. And then he was hurt, so they were talking about he wasn't going to fight. And I was like, you didn't break your hand. You, sprained your hand. You're fine. So, so I couldn't imagine he would pull out for that. So I was sitting there, hoping against hope that he would be fine for the finals, for the quarterfinals. And lo and behold, he didn't pull out, and he's here, so I get to get this one back.
Knowing that the rematch would be next for you in the quarterfinals as soon as the fight wrapped up, or pretty much right after the fight was over, did that make the loss a bit less sour?
No, the loss is nothing's gonna make. I'm one of those people to where I understand that losses make you better and they show you where your deficiencies were. But I'm also one of those people who I'm never gonna be like, well, we learned from it, so it's fine. No, a loss is a loss, no matter the reason it sucks, and nothing's gonna take the edge off of that. Even if you lose the fight where everybody's like, oh, you won, you still lost. Nothing takes the edge off of that. So doesn't make it any less sour. It just made me realize that I will rather die this time than let him walk away with a win again. I've never lost a rematch, and no one's ever beat me twice. I'm never going to, I'd rather die first.
Do you think about that mentally going into this fight? I've never lost a rematch, so why that's not going to change? Do you think about that going in?
Yeah, I do, because for me, it's more of an issue of I've never lost a rematch. No one's ever beat me twice, because I pride myself on being intelligent, and I pride myself on being able to do whatever work needs to be done. And, they're saying that you're not going to do it twice. My pride as a human and as a man and as a fighter won't let you beat me twice.
How have you been finding it training for the exact same opponent in back-to-back bouts?
So the first camp was really, really rough, man. It was a really rough camp. It was my second fight with the Syndicate and John Wood. And it was just a really rough camp. I was still kind of in transition from moving and anything else. And my buddy Shawn Strickland calls it, and he he's the first one who brought it up to me, a UFC guy, and I call it the Kamaru Usman effect. When Shawn had a fight with Usman, and being a good wrestler, what did Shawn do? He went out and found every D1 wrestler he could possibly find. And day after day, he's just getting, like, slammed around by D1 wrestlers working on stuff. And he got better, yeah, but, like, mentally it chips away at your confidence. And, like you're like, man, like, I fucked up in practice, like, a lot. Like, man, even though I've been working on it, like, I was still taking it down a lot. And I kind of had my Usman moment last fight to where that camp, I just wrestled so much. All I did was, like, find the best wrestlers I could deal with. And you get better, but, like, man, like that, you never forget the rounds that you sucked at. Like, in camp, you'll have rounds to where you're a god. You won't remember those rounds come fight time. You'll always remember the rounds you did badly in. So this camp, John kind of mitigated my ability to, like, have all of those rounds to where, you're always going to have bad rounds, but I didn't have the parade of, like, D1 wrestlers every day just beating me up. Like, we had days to where we had hard goes with really good guys. Then we had days we backed off. And I realized in the second fight, like, getting ready for this camp, like, even though I wasn't doing the super wrestling every day, the days I went with the really good wrestlers, I was performing better because I had built confidence and, like, muscle memory up from guys who weren't as good. So when I got to those guys, my body built in emotions, and I know I've seen this before, it's nothing new. We kind of lose that anxiety. So, like, that's been a huge thing. Like, I beat myself to the ground mentally and physically the first fight. Like, I'm going to take out the champion. And, Neil Melanson, when my coach used to the fan, he says, are you building up? Are you building yourself up, or are you tearing yourself down right now? And, like, I think that's what the first fight, tear myself down completely to get there. So we did a lot more building this camp, and it feels better. It feels a lot better.
So with this so-called Woodsman effect, is it a matter of almost like a confidence? Like, did it impact your confidence going into that first fight, going up against and training with all these high-level wrestlers?
It does, man. It does, because on one hand you're like, okay, they're not this guy. Like, he's not this guy. He's not those guys. Like, I wrestle with guys 10 times the rest of Magomed will ever be. So you're like, he's not that guy. On the flip side, though, even though he isn't as good as him, if you're in camp, say you're in camp and you get double leg, you're having trouble stopping a double leg. D1 All-American guy, he just keeps double legging you. Like, the guy you're fighting, he wrestled in high school, whatever. So he's not this guy. He's not as good. But say he does double leg you, you're used to that. But part of your mind is going to flash back to that shit, here I am again. And that's what you can't have in fights, is when you get in that bad position and it becomes defeats from, like, from practice. If you're carrying around, like, those defeated moments in practice, it impacts the way you fight. And this camp was kind of something like that happened to me a little bit. Last camp was, I brought some of those defeated moments to where I got in a spot to where I was fine, but mentally you're like, fuck, not again.
So what would you say the biggest difference is with this camp than the last one?
I stopped being an asshole and I let John do his job and coach me. Like, I'm a very coachable guy. I pride myself on it. But on the same side, I'm from Ohio, man. Like, what we lacked in, like, sophistication in our fighting style, we made up for with hard work. So I'm a guy who's always going to do extra and always going to do more. I want to outwork everybody in the gym. And, I think I used that mindset. It's taken me far, but it's become a detriment sometimes to where, I can do more rounds. I'm tired, but I can do more rounds. I want to outwork guys. So, yeah, I'm putting more work in like that. But at what point are you just, grinding gears? And on top of that, as you get tired, your performance gets worse and worse and worse. All the good rounds you had before go away. They all go away. All you remember is, like, at the end, you're tired, you're getting beat up. So I've kind of had to back off and let John and my other coaches, be coaches and, listen to their words and dictate where my training goes. And I've walked out of this camp a lot less injured than I was my last camp. my last fight, we barely made it to the fight. Like, it was a rough camp. We barely physically made it to that fight. So this camp, I'm coming out of it a lot less injured than I was.
So the training from last camp to this one is a lot different. What are the main takeaways from the first fight with Magomed? What did you learn from that one that you feel you can bring into this one and have a different outcome?
Oh, I realize now that Magomed's not a killer. Like, it's not his personality. He's not a killer. He's got some finishes, but he's not there to fight. He's not there to hurt you. He's there to win. And if he can grab a finish on the way to that win, he will. But he's not a killer. And I realized that way too late. Is he's more than happy to just kind of hang out so long as he wins. So this fight, we can't step on the gas. But I cannot afford to. I got 2 rounds. I can't afford to not step on the gas. So I just it's so weird, man. Just like the way he's a guy who doesn't want. It feels like he doesn't want to be there when he fights. Like he doesn't. He is there to pick up his points and move on. And, come out as safe as possible. He doesn't want to be in the thick of it. Is what I honestly feel. So at this point, it's just go in and step on the gas and just beat him down. Like I feel I'm a better fighter than he is. If I'm not, I'm damn sure I'm a better athlete than he is. So I just got to use it this time.
Generally, are you pretty good with watching your losses back and assessing them and seeing what happens? Or are you a guy that, you don't like to watch them that much?
Man, I hate watching him, but I will. Okay, I'm one of those guys. It hurts. I hate watching my losses because I always see where I messed up. And, I hate seeing it. But at the same time, I'm a guy who forces himself to watch his losses because that's one of the ways I'm going to learn. And, I've watched this fight ad nauseum. I could narrate this fight with my eyes closed, honestly. I know it happens so much. So I can't take anything like, he's going to do this, this, and this. But, I won't take specifics away from it, but I kind of have a better understanding of the way his mind works in the fight now.
And the reason I ask that is because if you lose a fight and just sort of go on with your career and either sign with a different promotion or just have a different fight, you're not usually in this scenario of you're fighting the guy you just lost to again. I'm curious, how many times approximately how many times have you seen this fight?
To me, man, I can't.
You said you can narrate.
If I was at home,
must be quite a few.
Dude, if I was at home, I could pull up my YouTube. It'll show me my number of times I've viewed it. It's got to be at least 50 or 60 times at this point. Like, I have a much better understanding of Magomed the fighter now. And, it's maybe he's going to make some differences. Maybe he'll have something up his sleeve. But I feel like I've got a great understanding of who he is as a fighter now, as opposed to the first time.
That could go both ways, could it not? He's been in there with you for 15 minutes. He knows. I'm sure he's thinking the same thing. Oh, I beat Curtis the first time. Now I have even a better understanding. Do you sort of agree, or is it more so for you because you have more to learn from the loss than he does a win, maybe?
It definitely goes both ways, and I'm sure he felt something or he saw something that he thinks is a detriment to me. And, I don't know. I can't speak for him, what he felt or what he saw. But I don't know. I think I have a bigger takeaway because at no point in time in that fight was I ever hurt or was I ever in danger. I hurt him at least twice, and I almost choked him unconscious. So, at this point, he knows that the big part of his victories were, he was banking on people being I don't know how to deal with him. And, especially that third round, you saw me stop caring and come at him, and he's like a deer in headlights. So, and, honestly, being in there, man, I watched him start to panic. I watched him start to come apart. That third round, I stuffed, 8 shots? Just throwing him off. No. And he started taking more and more panic shots from farther away. He didn't know what to do. I watched him panic. I watched him come apart, and he knows that. He knows that I know that. He knows that I yelled it in his face. I don't care if he didn't speak English. He knows what I was saying. As a man, as a fighter, he knows what I was saying. And I think that's going to play a part. He's this guy's not afraid of me. He's not afraid. And he knows that he has to know I'm coming to take his head off.
And to go off that, you said a second ago, I realized in the first fight that he isn't a killer. I mean, you seem to have thought that going in, then you realize, okay, maybe not. How does that impact this fight coming up on October 11th?
Because I know when it comes down to it, he's not going to fight me. Magomed's a guy who will hold position over trying to go for the win, and it's fine. Like, that's just, every fighter's different, but it's just misleading. Just, you see his guillotine finishes in PFL and everything, and you think he's hunting it, and I'm like, no, he's just literally just falling into good positions. People make mistakes, he just jumps on it. He's not a killer. He's not going out there to hurt you. He's not going out there to do all of this. He will take what he can get. So going forward, if I don't give you anything, if I don't give you a good position anymore, what are you going to do? You're going to run around and dance. I'm going to beat you up.
Does your approach change now that you're in the playoffs and the stakes are higher? In the opening rounds before the playoffs, you obviously want to win to get points, but it's not necessarily win or go home. Now it is. Does that change your approach, knowing that the stakes are higher?
I've treated every fight as win or go home. I've never really cared about the point system too much. Like I'm just out here to fight and do what I can do. So I was never a guy chasing points too very much. So for me, it's just every fight's a fight I have to win. It's just one more.
Now, every time I talk to a PFL fighter ahead of the season, I mean, I've talked to you about this before in the past when you first joined PFL before the season started. What do you think it'll be like to fight two guys in one night? And now you're coming up on that potentially happening. The winner of your fight will meet Sadou Boussaï or Ray Cooper in the semifinals later in the night. Throughout this camp, do you prepare only for Magomed, or are both those guys kind of in the back of your mind?
No, I honestly haven't thought about Ray or Sai. Honestly, they're both good guys, good fighters, but neither one of them is something I haven't trained for before, haven't prepared for before. Fighting two guys in one night, genuinely doesn't bother me. Like, the first fight's only 2 rounds, second fight's 3 rounds. I've been fighting 5-round fights for years. My regular sparring twice a week, I'll spar them 5 rounds in the morning. I've got a 2-hour break, and then I've got another 5-6 rounds in the afternoon. So, this is nothing new to me. I'm one of the most conditioned guys in the sport at my weight. So that's not a really concern. At this point, it's just been beating Magomed. Whatever comes next, I'll adjust to whoever's next. I can't plan for a situation like that, so you never know. So I'm not going to invest time in thinking about it. I'll invest time in what I can control and what I know. So that's been Magomed.
So the sole focus, as usual, is on the one guy that right now you're fighting.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. I could plan to fight Ray Cooper. Ray Cooper could win, but he could fuck himself up and have to fight differently. There's so many factors. It's ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous to invest time and energy into worrying about somebody that may or may not be there and in what condition. At the end of the day, I fought tall guys, I fought short guys, I fought boxers, I fought kickboxers, I fought wrestlers, I fought black belts, I fought grapplers. You've seen it all. I trust my ability to make adjustments.
You live in Las Vegas. This fight is in Las Vegas. Does that make it nicer not having to travel to the other side of the country?
It's great, man. Especially as I hate New Jersey, and I've never had any luck in I've never had any luck in New Jersey. Every time I go to Jersey, something bad happens or I lose. So it's just, I'm glad not to be in Jersey, first of all. Second, it's really nice being home, having all my coaches and training partners and everything, so nothing has to change. I'm not going to make any crazy adjustments. I'm not going to acclimate anywhere, so that's nice.
Completely side note, I know when we talked maybe the first couple times, you were training in California, and now you're training in Vegas, and I kind of just I knew both that you had made the switch, but I never really processed it. When did you actually move to Vegas and start training at Syndicate?
End of January, early February.
Okay, so pretty recently.
This is when I came out. Yeah, it was right when I got signed.
Why did you make the move, and how have you been finding it?
I love it, man. It's been great, man. There's so much talent out here, and it's a lot of talent concentrated into one place. The mecca of MMA, and it definitely shows. So I freaking love it. Weather's great. We've got crazy Ohio weather anymore. But when it first came up, it was a big opportunity, $1 million. So I'm going to have to do something big, something different. And, to make money I've never made before, I've got to do something different. So I decided I'm going to take this year. I'm going to move to where to be surrounded by a lot of motivated, like-minded people, and just give it my offer this year, and try to make my $1 million.
Was there something you felt you weren't getting in California that you knew you needed if you wanted to succeed?
Yeah, I mean it's just one of those things where the evolution of yourself as a fighter, and it's Vegas. There's always somebody training. There's great gyms on every corner. Everything's in such a small area. That you got like 6 great gyms off my head. Within 8-9 miles of each other right now. So there's so many bodies, coaches, talent, everything else. It's a really good place to be to succeed.
And I know you were so close with. I mean, you mentioned Shawn Strickland and Sam Alvey. Do you still train with them? Do you go there sometimes? Do you keep in touch at the very least?
I keep in touch with Shawn. I talk to Shawn all the time. He's still one of my best friends. He's come out. He's cornered me my other 2 PFL fights. My 2 fights he's cornered me so far. He comes out. He's kind of recover from injury right now. So he comes out and kind of helps coach and give pointers and everything. He'll be in my corner for this fight. So yeah, I talk to Shawn all the time just because he's for all his shortcomings. Shawn's a good dude. He's a really good friend of mine. I haven't really talked to Sam too much, but he's got his stuff going on, everything in California, and he got a Shogun fight coming up. So he's gonna be off getting ready for that.
And he has a gazillion kids, so I guess he has a lot on his plate.
That he does.
Chris, thanks so much for the time. Last question. How do you get it done? You're taking on Magomedkerimov for the second time, October 11th in Las Vegas, PFL 7. How do you win this fight?
Dude, any way possible, man. That's all I know. I'm going to win it any way possible. I don't care how. I don't care when. I'm just going to win.